In this series, I'll be testing all perks in the game to see which ones work, which don't, and picking the best ones based on what you need in your campaign. I've put timestamps for each perk, so feel free to jump around as needed. Let's get started. Level 25 Preventative Medicine. Both perks are working correctly, giving a +5 to our main character's max HP pool, as well as healing for 30% of lost hit points. A few things to note here. The lower our HP is at the end of a battle, the more HP will be restored, and this perk scales with HP increase perks, making it more effective in the late game. Self-medication does work, but the tooltip pop-up doesn't account for the perk, and it doesn't give 30% more healing rate. In the test, we started with 23 HP and rested for a full 24 hours. Without the perk, we ended up with 35 HP, and with the perk, 36 HP. Looking at the tooltip, there's no increase in healing rate, so it's done on the back end. The movement speed perk does work, ending a roughly 100 meter run 4 meters faster than without the perk. The pick here is simple. If you're trying to max out combat movement speed on foot, then consider taking self-medication. For any other situation, take preventative medicine. The more health you lose in battle, the better off you are with preventative medicine. Level 50 Triage Tent. Both perks are working properly here. We see a 30% increase in healing rate while not moving on the campaign map. It's 30% of the base rate and doesn't scale with other healing perks, so +1.5 flat. One thing I ran into during the testing. Sometimes I got stuck with starving troops even with food in my inventory. I'm not sure what caused it, but selling food and buying it back from the town seemed to fix it. The Governor perk did work for both towns and castles, although the effect was much greater for towns, saving 5.5 food compared to a little over 1 for a castle. Walk It Off has some issues. The first part of the perk works as intended, adding 15% to the base healing rate while moving on the campaign map. It works for both healing wounded troops as well as hero healing rate. For the second part of the perk, I wasn't able to get the +10 HP after offensive battles to work. I tested 10 battles in total, both fighting in person and auto-resolve, but the main character's HP didn't change from before and after battle. When picking for a surgeon, I prefer Triage Tent, as the healing rate is more significant and the majority of healing is done in towns while stationary. Adding 0.75 while moving is a negligible difference in my opinion. Triage Tent is the only governor option. Level 75 Doctor's Oath. One of my favorite perks in medicine. Both perks are working properly here. I ran 2 battles. The top results in yellow without the perk and the bottom green with. There's a huge difference in injuries going from 30 up to 73, more than double. This perk also correctly adds 5 HP to our character. This isn't the full story though. I included another test to see how much medicine XP is gained by having this perk. We killed a standard noble army of 124 troops without a single loss on our end. Normally this battle would yield no medicine XP, but with the perk we go from level 75 all the way up to 80 and very close to 81. This is a great perk. Both of Sledges' perks are working correctly. The first reduces the movement speed penalty from wounded troops by 50%, in this case going from 0.24 down to 0.12. The secondary perk also increases the hit points of all mounts by 15. The top shows 8 shots on our own horse that starts with 200 HP. The perk doesn't save it from a 9th shot unfortunately, but you can see there's more HP left in the bar with the perk on the right. It also increases our troops' mounts' HP. A 200 hit point horse went down in 12 shots without the perk, but survived an extra shot with the perk. It's hard coming up with a good reason to take Sledges over Doctor's Oath. If you're using a cavalry heavy army, then the extra mount HP might help some, but I still think Doctor's Oath is a mandatory pick. Level 100 Best Medicine. Both perks here work as advertised. We see a 0.75 increase in healing rate when our party's morale is above 70. It works for both our troops healing as well as our hero healing rates. The secondary perk does give a +1 relations gain to a random notable in the town if they're over 50 years of age. The relations gain check happens once per day, usually around the daily wage tick, so you don't need to sit in town all day for it to work. Both parts of good lodging work, giving a +3 bonus to healing rate. One nice thing here is it adds both the base healing rate and the settlement bonus to calculate the increase, rather than just the base rate. The secondary perk does work, but there's a typo. It gives relations gain for nobles over 50, not notables. When picking for a surgeon, I prefer good lodging as the best healing rates happen when sitting in town, which means the bonus from the perk is more impactful here. The secondary perk will only work on our main character, as I did try it with a companion, but no relations were gained. Best medicine is good to raise relations if you're trying to unlock more recruiting slots, but otherwise good lodging should be the pick. Level 125 Siege Medic. The first part of this perk was tough to test, since there's a lot of RNG with siege bombardment. Typically 2 troops are lost for each destroyed siege engine, but with the perk, sometimes we get a troop back right after the damage is done with the perk active, so it seems to be working. The second part of this perk is more Tailworld's math. I ran this test many times, and each time, worse results were recorded with the perk active. Typical death to injury ratio was 35% without the perk and 50% with the perk. You gotta love it. Fortunately, both parts of Veterinarian are working properly. The first part converts lame horses back into regular, although I do question the 30% chance, as in my testing, it took about 10 days for a single conversion. The secondary perk does work as described, but it doesn't happen on the looting screen. We see both with and without the perk giving 4 mounts as loot, but after battle, we see many more mounts added to our inventory, and it's roughly 50% of the killed cavalry, not the injured ones. When it comes to picks, I really do like Siege Medic for reducing bombardment casualties, as those can add up quickly, oftentimes killing your premium tier 6 units. However, with the secondary perk not working properly, it's hard to recommend it. Veterinarian is great if your army contains a lot of cavalry, as getting those expensive mounts back after battle can help. Level 150 Bush Doctor. Both perks here appear to work correctly, but unfortunately Tailworld's math prevailed. Healing rate in villages does have a bonus applied, but as we'll see soon, it's impossible to use. The secondary perk does work, taking hearth growth from 0.48 up to 0.6. Now back to the problem perk. I tested the area in and around the village to see where it applies and where it doesn't, but as you can see, it doesn't work anywhere. As soon as we enter the village, we see the bonus added back in. The problem is, once we hit wait and settlement, the game kicks us back out and we lose the bonus. Basically, it only works when paused, but healing doesn't take place when the game is paused, so it's completely useless, much like Tailworld's quality control department. Both parts of Pristine Streets work properly. We see a +1 to prosperity for both towns and castles for the governor perk, and a 20% healing bonus when waiting inside a town. Again, the bonus applies to the base rate and settlement bonus. When picking for a surgeon, do not pick Bush Doctor as it's broken, making Pristine Streets the pick. For a governor, both perks are good, and the pick will depend on what you need. Hearth growth rate is amazing if your villages aren't at 600 hearths or more, making Bush Doctor a great pick. Otherwise, Pristine Streets is the pick. Level 175 Health Advice. I wasn't able to test death chance from old age, since Tailworlds decided to cap increased game speed at 15x, which means 1 year takes roughly 10 minutes in real life. It would have taken several hours for a single test. This perk was working before, so hopefully that hasn't changed. For the secondary perk, I used a large mass of peasants to check the morale drop. On the left we see morale at the end of battle without the perk at 35, and on the right with the perk at 55. The perk is definitely working and makes a big difference. Perfect Health has a bit of Tailworld's math. The first perk increases healing rate by 5% with each food type in our inventory. By adding the perk with all 9 foods, we see an increase of 0.08. I'm certainly no Fields Medal recipient, but the math seems off here. 9 food types should add a 45% bonus to the healing rate, but I don't see how that's possible. It's roughly 1.6% of the base rate of 5. I removed all foods except for grain and it dropped to 0.02. It seems they added 0.02 per food group up to 8 types, and don't give you a bonus for the 9th. The secondary perk increases animal production by 10%. I collected everything a sheep farm produced for 5 days and compared with and without the perk. Only the sheep was consistently 10% more with the perk, while the others seemed to fluctuate randomly. The picks are a bit complicated. If our main character is the surgeon and death is enabled, Health Advice is an amazing pick. The morale part is mostly useless, but avoiding death is great. For surgeons that aren't our main character, still pick Health Advice, as at least it works. Perfect Health is the only option for governors. Level 200 Clean Infrastructure. The first governor perk is supposed to add +1 prosperity from civilian projects, but through testing it actually gives a flat +2, no matter how many buildings you have upgraded. I sacked a town and castle until it had no buildings left, and still got +2 for towns and +1 for castles. The secondary perk is not functioning fully as well. By default, a village needs roughly 9 days to recover after being raided. Through testing, castles still needed 9 days, while towns only needed 6 to recover. Physicians of the people fared much better. The Governor perk does add +1 loyalty to both towns and castles. For the secondary perk, I sent a large group of peasants with and without the perk to compare. Without the perk, we see 15 injuries and 34 deaths, or a ratio of roughly 1 to 2. With the perk, we see 11 injuries and 44 deaths, and the ratio doubles to 1 to 4. For a surgeon, Physician of the People is the only option. For Governor picks, Physician of the People is a solid choice, as getting to 100 loyalty is incredibly important for an efficient fief. Clean Infrastructure is also a decent pick, particularly for a fief that struggles with being raided and low prosperity. If possible, get 1 companion for each and use them accordingly. Level 225 Cheat Death. Similar to 175 health advice, I wasn't able to test death chance since Tailworlds nerfed speeding the game up, but it did work in the previous testing I did a year ago. For the secondary perk, I created a companion-only army of 1100 companions and sent them to their doom. Without the perk, 6 died and 959 were injured. With the perk, deaths dropped to only 2, with 965 injuries. The perk does work and makes a huge difference. The problem is death rate is so incredibly low to begin with that it might not matter. Fortitude Tonic is pretty straightforward. Both perks work and add exactly what the perk states. What a novel concept. When picking for a main character and when playing with death on, Cheat Death is incredibly important to take. For a surgeon, Cheat Death is the only option. For a companion leading their own party, Fortitude Tonic should be the pick to get the +5 HP. If you're doing a companion-heavy campaign, Fortitude Tonic can help some, but Cheat Death is generally a better option. Level 250 Helping Hands. Both of these perks work properly. The first part increases troop healing rate by 0.1 for each 10 troops in our party. With 100 troops, we see a +1, and 200 troops, a +2 healing rate increase. Note that this perk doesn't change our personal hero's healing rate. The Governor perk decreases the prosperity loss from starving. Without the perk, we see a -10 from food shortages, but only -5 with the perk. Battle Hardened also has both perks working correctly. Without the perk, we see only 5 upgrades, but with the perk and 7 injuries, we see 7 upgrades, which is roughly 150 XP more. The next perk is tough to show, but essentially it reduces casualties from siege bombardment. Without the perk, we lose 2 troops per hit, and with the perk, only 1, but it happens only 25% of the time. When picking for a surgeon, both picks are decent. Battle Hardened helps level up troops faster, especially higher tier troops that have a higher chance of injury than lower tier troops. Helping Hands is good if you want to heal troops faster. For Governor, I don't find Battle Hardened all that useful, as losses from siege bombardment on the defending side isn't a big deal. Losing prosperity from starvation is a real problem though, so Helping Hands is the pick. Level 275 Minister of Health. This perk is incredibly overpowered and adds 1 hit point for every 2 levels of medicine over 200 for all of our troops. At 275 it adds 37 HP, and at max level 330 it adds 65 HP. It can be helpful for any troop type, but it's particularly powerful with high tier troops that have good armor. For the testing, I ran 2 identical battles using Manavliaton troops. Without the perk, we sustain 20 casualties, and with the perk, only 5, which is a massive difference. One thing to keep in mind, this perk is tagged personal, so it cannot be used by a companion surgeon, and only affects the units in your main party, not companion party's troops. This is definitely a final perk worth getting to level 330. One tactic we can utilize with this perk is the Oblique Order, which relies heavily on melee foot troops. Click this video right here to see how to pull this amazing tactic off. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.